After the events of Infinity War and Endgame, he is a very different person. He's been through a lot, something that none of us can really relate to. And Spider-Man, to him, has become a bit of a chore. You know, he decides to sort of hang up the suit and go on holiday and enjoy his time with his friends and just be a young adult and be someone who's enjoying their life and learning who they are and finding out where they belong in the world. But throughout the course of the movie, he realizes he's already found out where he belongs, and that's in the Spider-Man suit, and that's with the responsibility of saving his neighborhood and saving the city, and in some cases, saving the world. I think he did a great job with that in Homecoming, with it being a lighthearted film, with it being a funny film, but without sacrificing the emotion or the drama that superhero films warrant, you know? And I think this film does that in a stronger way, because it's funnier than the first one, but the stakes are higher and it's more emotional, so it's bigger and better in every way possible. I loved working with Sam. I really, really enjoyed working with Sam. It was a lot of fun. Obviously, in the film, Peter Parker is very intimidated by Sam Jackson. Tom Holland might have been a little bit intimidated by Sam Jackson, but he's a lovely guy, and he was really welcoming, and we bonded over golf. We both played golf. It was just cool for me to bring Spider-Man into a bigger part of the MCU. Every time I get to do a scene with one of these veterans who have been there since the beginning, it's just really exciting because we're solidifying the fact that this character exists in a bigger world, and there's endless possibilities. Happy Hogan is one of my favorite characters from the MCU, and when I found out that he'd be coming back for Spider-Man Far From Home, I was just over the moon because I love the energy he brings to the films. And everyone says Robert is the godfather of the MCU, but Favreau is like, he's the mastermind. Him and Kevin, they made the first movie and the second movie, so I loved picking his brains about that. But Happy Hogan in this film sort of has a little bit of a thing with Aunt May, which Peter isn't too sure about, but he's not mad about it either because he really likes Happy. But Happy Hogan takes on a huge responsibility throughout this film. Jacob was fantastic in the first one, but he had gone away after making Spider-Man Homecoming and made a few new films, and when he came onto set for Spider-Man Far From Home, he meant business. He was so good, and when we finished the first scene with him, everyone was blown away by how great he was, and he improvised for 2 minutes straight, and all of it was great. Because you often find when people improvise that you're like, oh, come on, mate, this is really rubbish. You're just wasting film now. And Jacob filled a clip of just gold, and I hope all of it makes the film because it was so funny, and I was in stitches behind the camera. It's always a real privilege to get to work with your friends, and even more so when you see them doing so well and you see them absolutely knocking it out of the park. So I love Jacob to bits, and I love working with him, and it's just one of the highlights of this movie.
He's also so physical. He's an incredible dancer. He moves like it's insane. I mean, one of the first days we were working together, he decided to enter the scene by, jumping on a trampoline and doing a backflip and then landing right in front of me, because just to finish off the movement that his character does. You hear about a lot of these people who've played Spider-Man in the past, and nobody is as physical as he is, and no one commits to the physicality like he does. And he is there with all the stunt crew, with second unit, doing his stunts, as many as he can. And, he's just fully committed. And I think people feel that. And I think he's just, if you can't tell already, I think he's great. As a director, as a filmmaker, I would imagine that it's very, very hard to inject your originality into a world that's already composed. And yet somehow John has the ability to do that in every single moment in this film, and also he allows the actors, truly allows the actors to have room. And there were a number of days I come on set and I'd say, oh, I'm thinking about, he'd be like, just, you know, whatever, I'm just setting the camera so you can do what you want to do, what you just explore. And you would think on a film like this there would be, you know, and particularly because this is his second Spider-Man film, but it really is, he hasn't made many films. So to have a filmmaker with such maturity and such assuredness in what he wanted, and yet also to give actors who are, you know, we're all pretty complex, the ability to play inside a space says a lot about him. I have told John a number of times throughout shooting that I want to make another movie with him. I think what makes Tom Holland such a good Spider-Man is that he has a genuinely good heart. You know, I think he is kind and empathetic, and at the same time also has a real edge to him. You know, I don't think he just takes everything that comes to him. I think he has a great attitude and a great sense of humor. But I think at the heart of him, he is truly empathetic. And everything that he does comes from a place of wondering about what someone else feels.
He obviously likes her, and what I think is cool is everybody's expecting there to be like, you know, oh, you know, MJ goes through this makeover and now she's the popular girl and now Peter likes her, and that's not what happens here. Is really, you know, Peter likes her for exactly who she is and all the little quirks and the weird things that make her MJ, and he likes that. So I think it's cooler that way, you know. I think it just proves that, like, you know, if you're meant to be with someone, you're meant to be with them. In the first movie, like, I didn't really obviously have too much to work with, but we kind of created a very distinct character with those few little moments, and now we're just able to expand on that and just learn more about her, you know, because we don't really know about her. She's kind of mysterious and just kind of in the background, so we just kind of get to see more sides of her character and how she responds in situations that make her be a little bit more vulnerable, and how her and Peter, you know, connect. Him and Jacob, you know, they're just like so locked into their characters. In many ways, I think they are their characters, you know? And so it's funny because neither of them really have to look at their lines. Because I don't know, they're just so funny going back and forth off of each other. They can like look at their lines once and just like go back and forth, and they can stutter and have fun and make up lines and all this kind of stuff because it works for their characters. Me, on the other hand, I can't. I would freak out and have a panic attack if I don't know my lines, like word perfect. And then also, my character like is so like sure on everything she says that I can't kind of like go off and, you know, do these things. Like the whole point of it is that she never makes a mistake on anything, really. She just kind of knows what she's gonna say before she says it. A lot of the scenes where we're, you know, running from things or, you know, crazy stuff is going down, there's a lot of really cool location shots that we were able to do. So it's, I mean, it's pretty cool to be like running like away from like, and really being able to see the scenery of like the Tower of London and the Tower Bridge, and like it's really there because I'm really here, you know. I don't know, it's just kind of like being able to be in the real spaces, like real time, is really fun. Just knowing all the crazy things that are gonna happen. There's like literally like so many massive action scenes, and I know that, I mean, that's what we come to watch, right? If we're watching a Spider-Man movie. And I mean, they're great. And also to see them not in New York. Like, we're so used to seeing these action scenes happen kind of in the same location so many times before. But now we're in Europe seeing these things. So it's kind of like Spider-Man doing his thing in another country is like, I don't know, it's just cool, you know? It's something we've never seen before.
I will definitely say that people will not know what's gonna come. Like they will be hit by a brick wall and they won't even see it coming. So you know, strap your seatbelts on and get ready because it's a ride and a half. Um, seriously, you're gonna be like on the edge of your seat from like 10 minutes in. Like seriously, it's like so wild. And just be I can't even prepare you for the shock because I'm still shocked about it. On the back lot, they basically made this huge pool and put like the like water in it and like buildings of Venice in it. And we were just like shooting like crazy stunt stuff in that set where Ngari and I are like being blasted onto shore by the big water monster. Like it's crazy. And what was insane was that watching because they had a bunch of extras that day and watching everyone run and scream, it really made you feel like something was happening. Like it was so crazy and intense. But the set itself was just so beautiful. Like seriously, I felt like I was in Venice. It was crazy. And like everything, I don't ever think about how much detail they put into set design because there's the cobblestone and like specific markings on the walls and stuff. It's all really authentic. It's actually very cute. I mean, Ned and Betty aren't really alike, you know, they're pretty different. And Gary is she's so sweet and so talented and amazing that it's so fun to work with her, like, in that capacity. But it kind of just happens. Like some accidental shuffle of seats in the airplane forces them to sit next to each other. And on the plane ride, they kind of just like, kind of fall in love, you know, and then have this really cute European trip together while all these crazy things are happening. Spider-Man isn't just an action movie. It's still a story about the kid and the people around him and the people he's trying to protect. And it's the humanity you find in like the other people in his life as opposed to him just going through everything else. I feel like the one main point about this is that he doesn't even feel like being Spider-Man at this point in time. Like he just wants to be on vacation. And the fact that he has to be thrown into like saving the world out of nowhere, it's like, can I just catch a break?
The first time, you know, Tom discovers me in this film was a really great moment. It's kind of like the first day I worked. So it was one of those, everybody on set was waiting, oh my God, Nick Fury's coming to work today. It's like, and then I'm sitting there and then he shows up and he's having that same kind of, and I'm having the same thing with, oh my God, I'm working with Spider-Man today, which always shocks people that I feel that way. It's like, I'm finally gonna get to work with Spider-Man today. So I have those moments. So I like that, my introduction and, you know, how we met in that dark room. He has serious doubts about Peter. Number one, you know, Peter's still a kid, and he wasn't around when he was in Civil War and doing all that stuff. And he knows, even though, you know, Tony Stark chose him, he still has to be vetted by himself because he always had issues with Stark anyway. So why Stark chose him, he's still trying to figure that particular part of it out. The fact that Stark chose him makes him push Peter harder because he understands that, you know, Stark had some expectation or saw something in him that he's trying to find that he hadn't talked to Stark about. But he knows he's there and he knows he has this and he knows Stark gave him a gift and is he worthy of that particular gift? And he's sort of feeling Peter out or testing him in various ways. I'm always chuffed watching Tom work. I mean, he has such a great level of energy and he has a knowledge of this character and he brings something that, you know, Spider-Man really needs, that youthful exuberance that, you know, a lot of us, you know, have been around for a while. We're kind of jaded. He's not. He's enthusiastic. We love that. I love that about him. He kind of understands he's not particularly ready for it, but he also needs to figure out or find out that it's not his choice anymore, that he has something that, you know, dictates that he becomes something more, that he has to accept. And he can't hide in the shadows. He can't just be your, typical neighborhood Spider-Man anymore. He belongs to a greater story. He'll do something and he'll laugh, and he'll come out of there laughing hysterically and go, okay, all right, we can make it even better. So I worry about that sometimes, but he kind of has his finger on the pulse of what this teenage thing is. So he and Tom have this great relationship, and he has a great relationship with the material, and he fits in that Marvel mold of, if you follow the playbook to do the superhero stuff, just give us the things we need that are the real human things that are going to make people, relatable and relate to what's happening on screen. And I think he has he has that down pat. He's very studied, and he works on what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. So when he shows up, he has a plan. And that's always good, because it gives you something to play off of, and keeps you on your toes, too.
I like when they have a lot of comedy in it, because I think at the end of the day, it's a mixture. You're going to have these big visual effects. You're going to have these huge stakes, and the fate of so many are in the hands of so few. And humor is a great way to help smooth all of that out and let an audience enjoy themselves. And that goes back to the books. That goes back to, what Stan Lee did. And I think part of Marvel, a big part of Marvel, was the comedy. It was the humanity, the naturalism of the humanity of the flawed heroes. You had the villains who might have been misguided, but there was always a kernel of justification in what motivated them, and there was dimension to the villains, and then there was always the real world setting. I grew up, it was set in New York, and this one in Queens. This one it starts off in the neighborhood I grew up in. He goes to the school that's based on the school I went to, the high school, Bronx Science, and it was always, it felt real, and the humor felt real. The humor felt like it wasn't these gods up in the clouds. It was human beings dealing with these situations as anybody would if they found themselves in those circumstances. I think the fact that they both had a really deep relationship with Tony, and what Happy must have gone through in the 5 years that have passed, and what Tony went through when Peter wasn't around, and now what Peter's going through, I think Happy has been right there in the thick of a very intense time, and I think it matured Happy a lot. And I think that one of the things you could do as a supporting character in a world populated by superheroes is you could be there and help them and support them, because you can't do it, but that without you, they might not be able to be their best selves. And so I think, and as I get older in life, it's like you see that that's really, there's a calling to that of being, because we're all interdependent. And so I think, at least I projected on the character, that he takes all of this much more seriously. He could still be comic relief at times, but I think that there has to be strong emotional moments where all of that could recede to the background, and you could kind of speak to what's really happening. And there's a lot of there's been a lot of emotional challenges for these characters. What's really fun about this is that there's so many different settings, and you have an established set of characters, and you have a honestly limited amount of storylines that you could pursue and still maintain the Marvel formula of hero versus villain. And so by of course, great casting, bringing in great people to play as Tom's foil, but you also have a great backdrop and all these opportunities for wonderful set pieces. When what happens when you're using the web shooter in Venice, and the structures aren't office buildings in Manhattan, but they're instead, old world structures that might not have the same structural integrity. What happens when you're, traveling to places where you don't belong. How does that feel, even if you're not a superhero, even if you're just a student, having your eyes open to what the world is like in all different cultures and different settings and histories, and of course, from a filmmaking perspective, it's really fun for them, I think, to use this as inspiration for, hey, where would I love to put a set piece? How cool would it be for us to be filming in the Tower of London or outside the Tower of London? And so it was really fun going to the set, and you'd show up, and there you were, the place that I was last time I was there, waiting in line to see the crown jewels, and now you have hundreds of extras running around. I'm getting to do stuff that I couldn't ever do if I was directing or worrying about all the things that the filmmakers are worried about. I get to just come in and say, where do you want me? What do I have to do in the scene? How can I help? And I find even as I cast directors bring a different energy because they're looking at the big picture in a way of like, how can I be of service to this? How can I help you tell the story? And I think when I was just an actor, I didn't always understand that. But as a filmmaker, I really relate to the struggle that the filmmakers are going through, and I try to offer, once they identify what they're trying to fix or what the problem is or what their concerns are, I can address it from that perspective and hopefully bring a lot to the collaboration. The whole Aunt May storyline more services the teen comedy version of how could we make Peter off balance as a high school student. And so that's something straight out of John Hughes or, that type of movie. And so it so much of the film is, hey, how are we going to solve this problem? How are we going to fight this bad guy? How are we going to get the tech back online? How are you going to, all of these lofty things that you would deal with in an Iron Man movie, but then he's worried about his relationships at school or who his aunt is dating and all the weirdness that makes for such, so fertile for comedy in intergenerational relationships in a teen comedy.
Well, it has to be character-based for me, and Peter Parker is the best character in all of Marvel Comics, and one of the best characters, I think, in all pop culture. And by starting off with him as a character, the scale of the movie can get big, and you can go to really epic places, but in terms of who he is as a character, he's so grounded and so relatable that you never, I think, have to worry about losing sight of the human side of it because he's such a great character. I think he sees this window for him to be a regular kid closing as his world is getting more complicated, and that's what drives him to evaluate like what are the most important things in his life. And it's like this has been there, and he feels like he has to move on it now because he might not ever get that chance again. He's seen the sacrifices that his mentors and heroes have had to make, and it's all becoming a lot more important to him now. My goal always is to just show people something that they've never seen before, and especially after the events of Endgame, this movie is going to tell you what's going to come next and is going to really show you what Peter's place is going to be in this universe moving forward. We're taking Spider-Man way out of his comfort zone and putting him up against a threat that he can't comprehend. The thing we were building up in the first movie was just her being smart and suspicious, and I was sort of spying on him and watching him. And the question was always, is it because she likes him, or is it because she thinks that he's Spider-Man? And so I really wanted to build off of that, where he's interpreting it as, I see her looking at me, and I think that means that she likes me, and I like her back, and I just gotta, find out if that's true.